Our first of 4 devotional thoughts today, coming from the Old Testament. In the book of Genesis, we find the story of how Laban's, Jacob's uncle, Laban's greed destroyed his wealth. Let me say that again. Laban's own greed destroyed his wealth. Now let me illustrate what we're talking about before I get into our text today. I talked with a businessman one time, and you remember I always change my illustrations because I never embarrass anybody. But I talked with a businessman one time, and he had started a new business, and he had offered his salesmen all a 10% commission for everything they sold. Well, most of the salesmen did okay, but he said he had one salesman that was making way too much money. And I said, well, is he only getting the 10%? He said, yes. I said, is he doing something wrong? He said, no, he's just getting too much money. And I said, now, let me understand this. You have one salesman who's making more than all the other salesmen. Yes, he's just making too much money. I said, is he doing something wrong? No. Is he only getting his 10%? Yes. Are you still getting 90%? Yes. Would you like him to sell less? No, I'd even want him to sell more. I just don't want him to make so much. And I said, so the problem is not that you're losing money. The problem is not that the salesman is doing anything wrong. The problem is you just want him to get less and you want more for you. And he bowed his head. He said, well, I wouldn't put it like that. And I said, but that's exactly what it is. I said, you entered into agreement with him, 10% commission on sales. He's working his butt off and he's making money, but you don't like it that he's making so much money. I said, that is the spirit of Laban. And that greedy spirit of Laban is what destroyed his wealth. Now, I want you to remember with me that greed has very little to do with your prosperity. People always think that people who are prosperous, who have money, are greedy. No, in fact, to be perfectly blunt, I find people without money are much more greedy than people who have money. Because all greed is you want something that you have no right to. Let me say that again. Greed is you want something that you have no legitimate right to. Laban had no legitimate right to keep changing the salary of Jacob. Just like this business owner had no legitimate right to take away a part of the commission of this salesman who was doing so well. Now, before this problem, Laban had a wonderful attitude toward Jacob. You know, in Genesis chapter 30, verses 7 and 8, he said, listen, I've learned by divination that, God has blessed me because of you. He said, you're the one who's made me wealthy. He said, your hard work has brought great wealth to my family. So he really liked Jacob and did not want him to leave when Jacob wanted him to leave. But as Jacob began to have some success for himself, Laban's attitude toward Jacob changed, as did his sons. In Genesis 31, verses 1 and 2, Jacob learned that Laban's sons were grumbling about him. Jacob has robbed our father of everything, they said. He's gained all his wealth at our father's expense. And Jacob began to notice a change in Laban's attitude toward him. So the father and the sons were now upset because wealth was moving from Laban to Jacob. But there was a reason for this. Genesis chapter 31, verse 43. Laban replied to Jacob, these women are my daughters, these children are my grandchildren, these flocks are my flocks. In fact, everything you see is mine. See, Laban believed that everything Jacob had was his, but it wasn't. Jacob worked for it. Now, I want you to understand what's happening here. When Jacob and Laban entered into an agreement, and Jacob said, all right, spotted and speckled are mine, solids are yours. Laban said in chapter 30, verse 34, good, let it be as you've said. This is a great deal. I like this idea. But when God began to bless him and he began to prosper, Laban, chapter 31, verse 7, he said, you've cheated me, changing my wages 10 times, but God did not allow you to harm me. You know what I believe? I believe that Jacob could have prospered as well as Laban. But Laban kept trying to cheat Jacob. He kept changing his salary. He kept, all right, now all the solids are yours and the spotted and speckles are mine. He kept changing it. And in doing that, he lost everything he had. Look at verses 7-9. But Laban has cheated me, changing my wages 10 times, but God had not allowed him to do me harm. For if he said, the speckled animals will be your wages, the whole flock began to produce speckled young. And when he changed his mind and said, the striped animals will be your wages, then the whole flock produced striped. In this way, God has taken your father's animals and given them to me. He said, in this way. Every time he changed it, God just made it in a way that everything came to me. If Laban had stuck with the agreement, God would have blessed his family as well as Jacob's family. Now, brothers and sisters, straight up talk. Never get the spirit of Laban. Never get that greedy thing where you think somebody is getting too much and so you're going to take some of it even though you agreed. And they're just working hard and they've earned it. Never, as a business owner, get that greedy spirit of Laban. Because what will happen is God will continue to prosper them and you will lose what you have.